EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody. Happy opener to the preseason there in Baltimore with the Eagles unfortunately losing to the evil empire of preseason football in the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome in. My name is Marc Farzetta. That's Bill Colarulo joining us right there from Legal Hands to the Face podcast and this Lehocky Postgame show. That's Lehocky Postgame show is presented by Ocean Casino Resort. Go to Ocean this football season and go for the win, ladies and gentlemen. Bill, welcome in. Little preseason kickoff tonight, man. Not the outcome, at least I was hoping for, but nonetheless, we saw some good flashes from some Eagles we were hoping to see good flashes from.
Yeah, and Eagles football is back, Farzy. Could we ask for anything better?
Yeah, just the regular season, the only thing. But we got to wait in due time. In due time, that regular season will be well worth the wait. Look, you said it right before we hit record. Hit go on the show. But we got what we needed, at least from one player. And what we got was I needed that kind of like Jordan Davis play that we got from Jordan Davis last year where he burst through the Jets offensive line and made it into the backfield, disrupt the play. Well, we certainly got that from Jalen Carter where he went out there tonight and made a play, beating a third-round pick from a year ago in Ben Cleveland. And I think Fletcher Cox said it best when he said on the sideline, it looked like they were running a screen. That's how easy it was for Jalen Carter to get into the backfield. That's all I needed to dine on for at least another week there, Bill. How about you?
Yeah, it was exactly what we've been hearing all training camp is that this guy looks like he is ready to contribute to this Philadelphia Eagles team. And first series, first snap, he just tossed that guy like he was nothing. And like you said, former first-round pick. And Jalen Carter is he's a beast. He really is. There's no reason he should have fallen from a skill perspective. And the Eagles lucked out. And at the end of the night, 2 quarterback hits. And who do they come from? Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, the 2 rookies that everybody was excited to see. And they delivered tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's what we needed for at least 1 week. We can talk about that. We can, like I said, dine on that for a moment, and we can enjoy that. One thing I did see tonight, look, we saw the speed, we saw the quickness, we saw the power from Jalen Carter. When you look at a guy like Nolan Smith, what definitely jumped out to me, and I don't like talking about speed because you could see speed in college, but when you see him at the NFL level, again, albeit preseason, but when you see him on an NFL field against NFL opponents, you see that speed really start to stand out. And they had him in the Hassan Reddick role tonight. Obviously, with Hassan Reddick not playing, they could allow him to just be free and go out there and get after the quarterback or try to get into the backfield as often as possible. And Nolan Smith, to me, really showed that speed off tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And in the preseason, everything's vanilla. All the schemes are going to be vanilla. They're not really going to dial up any of their complex blitzes or stunt packages. But what I thought was interesting is that Desai came out in a lot of 5-man fronts where they had 3 defensive tackles on the field with 2 defensive ends. At one point, you had Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Derek Barnett all on the field. And it was kind of cool, like you said, to see Nolan Smith speed and athleticism against other NFL players. Both of these guys look like they can contribute this season. Now, I will say, Farzy, I did a tweet. Whatever happens, good, bad, or indifferent, we can't get too high or too low because we all remember Sammy Sleeves back in 2015, Sam Bradford going, 10 for 10, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns, and almost perfect quarterback rating. I went to bed that night saying to myself, the Eagles robbed the Rams. And we all know how that turned out. So we all take a breath, take the good, take the bad, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. It is the preseason, but I thought it was a promising first half. The Eagles really dominated that first half against the Ravens.
No, they absolutely did. And I do want to say this, and you mentioned it already, but okay, so this is we're in the 6th minute right now, okay, of what's going to be a 90-minute show. I'm going to say this one more time, and I want to say it. Hopefully, this will be the last time we even have to acknowledge this. And John McMullen's going to join us. He'll probably utter this phrase as well. Derrick Gunn's going to join us coming up in our next segment. In about 15, 20 minutes, we'll talk to Derrick Gunn. But just everything we're about to say for the next 85, 84 minutes, it's the preseason. All right, so everyone, we're acknowledging it's the preseason. But I'm telling you, when I looked up at the screen today and I saw that Jordan Davis was your defensive end, I thought, interesting. Okay. But then in the interior there, you mentioned Milton Williams. Obviously, we mentioned Jalen Carter already. And then on the other side, you saw Derek Barnett with Nolan Smith, of course, lurking as an edge rusher there as well as an outside linebacker. It's something you would expect, as I said, the Hassan Reddick role. Jordan Davis as the DN. Look, I didn't need really tonight to see anything from Jordan Davis. I do find it interesting, though, that they had at least a package or an idea of him playing on the end as opposed to playing on the interior. Did that raise your eyebrows at all there, Bill?
Like I said, he was throwing out a little bit of a different front with that 5-2. And what I think they're trying to do is, we all know Jordan Davis can stop the run. The question mark for him coming out of college last season was, can he also put pressure on the quarterback? So I think by lining him up a little bit different than just right there at that nose tackle, one technique position, is to give him an opportunity to get after the quarterback to see if he can generate some interior pressure. So I think that's what you're seeing there. And I thought he did a nice job. The defensive tackle position is going to be very deep on this Philadelphia Eagles team. And if they can generate that interior pressure from those guys, it's going to really make up for some of the weaknesses that we may or may not have at linebacker. I was a little disappointed we didn't see Nakobe Dean tonight. I didn't expect to see him with the Cleveland Browns coming in, but that's a guy, I've said it week after week with you on the show, only 34 NFL snaps. So I want to see him play against NFL talent. We did see some of the other guys tonight, but that's the big question mark. But they can make up for a lot of that with that defensive tackle position causing interior pressure and really disrupting other offenses.
Certainly, and I think we will see Nakobe Dean. I think it's easy to say we'll see Nakobe Dean at some point in the preseason. I think playing as quickly as you are against the Browns during training camp with the joint practices and then playing in the game as well, I think they just wanted to be a little extra cautious with Nakobe Dean coming off the ankle injury. Great to see that he was a full participant in their last practice before this game, so I would expect to see him next week against the Browns. However, or I should say this coming week against the Browns, there is one guy. And when John McMullen and I were doing Birds 365 on Friday, and Bo Wolf joined us from The Athletic, he had mentioned that there's going to be a shuffling of the deck when it comes to the depth chart. Now, there's no official depth chart that's out just yet. There's going to be a shuffling of the deck. And he said the one name you could expect to shuffle the most was going to be Sidney Brown. A guy playing with the third stringers for the majority of training camp was going to come out here in his first NFL action, albeit preseason, come out in his first NFL action and show people that he is just as aggressive as he was scouted to be out of Illinois. And boy, was he aggressive tonight. I would fully expect this guy to be getting first-team reps this week at practice against the Browns for what we saw today. This guy was out there playing like he had been in the NFL for a couple of years already. The aggression was there. The smart play was there. You didn't really see him get caught up in being confused. This guy played exactly as you would want a rookie to play. When I see rookies out there, I ask one thing above all else. Just look like you belong. He not only looked like he belonged, he looked like he could own guys on the offensive side of the football. And that's what he did tonight. I was very impressed by what I saw from Sidney Brown tonight. How about you?
Yeah, I said it as soon as they drafted Sidney Brown. I said, if this guy can figure out how to play in the NFL, he's going to instantly become a fan favorite in Philadelphia because of the way he throws his body around and goes 1,000 miles an hour and just leaves it all out on the field. And you saw it tonight. He had 9 solo tackles, led the team with tackles. And like you said, we knew he was going to be aggressive. We knew he was going to fly around. But was he going to look lost? Was he going to be able to have the mental side of the game? And again, not that the Ravens were doing anything too complex on offense, but Sidney Brown in his first NFL action looked like he belonged on a professional football field. And I'm excited to see this kid grow week after week because, man, the way he flies around the field is exciting.
Yeah, that is like Reed Blankenship is a guy that likes to throw his weight around as well. And I'm just now, after this one game, I'm daydreaming about the idea of having 2 very physical safeties that love to come up, make hits, make plays. They can be aggressive with their hits. They can be aggressive by going after the football. And you might have 2 of those guys, very young guys with not a ton of experience, but are just flat out good. Sometimes you can throw experience out the window if a player is just flat out good. And these 2 guys could be very good players, Sidney Brown especially, being a 3rd-round pick and a guy that I know a lot of people were looking at a maturity level going into the NFL draft, saying he was off the charts at that. And then when it came to aggressiveness and being able to be a tough, hard-nosed football player at the safety position, he can certainly be that as well. And we got a little taste of that. We got a little appetizer of that when it came to Sidney Brown. So defensively speaking, I thought Sean Desai, yes, vanilla all the way, obviously. But as far as getting plays in, having guys look like they were organized throughout the game, I thought the communication looked very good between the defensive coordinator and his first job here with the Eagles. His second year as a defensive coordinator, but first game as the Eagles defensive coordinator. It looked like on that side of the football, things were pretty well established.
Yeah, you and I were a little nervous this week when the story came out that Howie Roseman had to correct the drill they were doing in practice with Sean Desai. But I agree. Looked like a very professional unit. Everybody seemed to be in the right spot at the right time. And that's not always easy when you're dealing with this many young players who are not used to playing in the NFL. So I thought the defense did look pretty good. And a couple other young guys stepped up. What a pick 6 by Eli Ricks. Still can't believe he didn't get a taunting penalty. Ross Tucker kept saying it on the broadcast, but it was right 2 times in a row. He doesn't get the taunting penalty, but I'm glad, don't give the guy the flag. He's a young guy. He's excited about making a big play, but he looked good. And then the other safety, Terrell Edmonds, that they brought in from Pittsburgh, I thought he looked pretty solid as well. So this safety position that's been a question mark, if Terrell Edmonds can play the way he was playing and Sidney Brown can grow into that role, I think the safety position is going to be just fine.
See, you mentioned Terrell Edmonds. I look at Kayvon Wallace in this game, and what I was looking at from Kayvon Wallace was, hey, give me a game where I see what everyone's been talking about. Like, the depth chart with him and Edmonds being, 1 and 1A on the unofficial depth chart, right? Let me see why Kayvon Wallace is all of a sudden entering the conversation when he seemed to be dismissed from previous coaching staffs. Why is Kayvon Wallace back in the conversation? Not only back in the conversation, but why is Kayvon Wallace also a guy to go out there and be one of the leaders out there as far as, number 1 guys in the secondary? And I thought he showed me that in this game. So look, I think Sidney Brown now is the front runner after this game. Okay. After this game, I think Sidney Brown is your front runner to be the starting safety next to Reed Blankenship for 2 reasons. 1, he played his ass off tonight. Okay. And the other,
Definitely.
The team wants him to be the starting safety next to Reed Blankenship. They're not pulling for Terrell Edmonds. All right. They're not pulling for Kayvon Wallace. They're pulling for their rookie 3rd-round pick to show right out of the gate that he could be a starter at the NFL level. So that, for me, is something that tells me and screams from the mountaintops that they want him to take over that spot. And he certainly made him look smart by the way he played tonight. So we'll see if there is that shift. But Kayvon Wallace definitely played as if a guy, it showed me why he is entering his name into that conversation as a guy that will not only stick around, but could start as the season goes on in terms of, the ebbs and flows of a season. Guys need breaks here and there. He could be a guy that you see significantly play more snaps than what you have seen before. So he definitely showed me that. And yes, Terrell Edmonds goes out there. He gets into the backfield to make a sack. He gets a couple of tackles as well tonight. He showed me why he's a guy that has started, 75 games at the NFL level with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, he showed me something there. So they're well off at the safety position after this one. They appear to be well off after this one game at the safety position. I was a little surprised to go on the offensive side of the ball. So you mentioned the Eli Ricks pick 6, okay? Great play by him. Should have been a taunting penalty. They didn't throw the flag. I understand that it's Ian Book behind the line of scrimmage as a quarterback, and he looked terrible today. Yeah. But what was that play call? What was that play design at the line of scrimmage? Now, again, we just talked about Sean Desai as the defensive coordinator. I'm looking at Brian Johnson. Look, with his with his second team guys, with even McKee behind the line of scrimmage today as your quarterback, they looked fine. But that play call at the 2-point conversion, that left a little bit to be desired there. But everything else for Brian Johnson, I thought as vanilla as it could be. But as far as communication went, I thought everything but that one play was gravy for the rookie offensive coordinator and play caller.
Yeah, early on in the first half with Mariota, they had the false start penalty and then the delay of game back-to-back. But outside of that, it seemed as if Brian Johnson was getting the play calls in fairly quickly. You have to hope that maybe that 2-point conversion, that the Eagles aren't going to use some of their 2-point conversion plays that they're practicing. I don't know, but I didn't like the design of the play either. I do like the aggressiveness. It's the preseason. You go for it there. But that play just was doomed from the start. The depth on the offensive line tonight was a little bit left a little bit to be desired there towards the end of the game. But Ian Book wasn't doing us any favors either. But, man, did Tanner McKee look good.
Oh, yeah.
I think you did a tweet saying that, welcome to the quarterback factory. You're not kidding.
No, he looked great. He looked great. And I'm seeing these reports about him going out there at training camp not looking so great. Ian Book could be the third-string guy for this squad and all that. Like, there's a okay. Let me make sure I'm very specific when I say this. There is a backup quarterback controversy. If there could be a backup quarterback controversy, after that game, there might be a backup quarterback controversy. He looked sharp. He looked crisp. He looked like he wasn't afraid to run with the football if he needed to. Made a couple of back shoulder throws as well to Cleveland. He looked like a guy that had been, again, a rookie. Go out there and look like you belong, man. This kid from Stanford absolutely looked like he belonged. That was great. I was very impressed with that performance. And Marcus Mariota, he did. Look, if you want a very similar style quarterback, if you want just a mobile quarterback, then obviously that's the guy that could be the mobile quarterback. Had a couple of good runs in this game as well. But Tanner McKee was a guy that was just on point and was not afraid to throw the football. There was a couple of throws as well that he just fitted in a tight window. Trying to think of who it was to. I think it was in the second quarter there.
Tyree Cleveland, maybe.
Well, it might have been. A couple of completions were to him. Tyree Cleveland.
They had another nice one to Johnny King, the guy they just picked up. That was a nice completion as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just on point as the quarterback. I was really enjoying watching him play. And if Marcus Mariota doesn't get a good control of the offense, if Marcus Mariota doesn't look like a guy that could be, a type of a quarterback to take over for a couple of games if need be, hey, look, this is one game. It's one good game for Tanner McKee to go out there and do what he did. And I was very impressed with what you saw from the rookie from Stanford.
Definitely. And the positive that came from the NFC Championship game is the Philadelphia Eagles can probably keep 3 quarterbacks on their roster now with that rule change. So you may see them keep Mariota and McKee. You touched on this briefly. The reason you have Mariota here is you don't have to change the offense very much when you put him in the game. He's able to still run that read zone. We saw it today. He had 4 carries, 29 yards. He's averaging 7.3 yards a carry there. So you don't have to change the offense too much if he needs to come in for a play or two if Jalen Hurts has to come out of the game. But, yeah, I would certainly feel more confident at this point with Tanner McKee if it was a long-term thing, but let's hope it never gets to that because our boy Jalen Hurts is playing all 17 games this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's before we talk to John McMullen in a little bit, before we talk to Derrick Gunn coming up in the next segment, the running back room was something that a lot of people have been debating. We'll continue to debate. Kenny Gainwell not dressed tonight. Boston Scott not dressed tonight. Something those two guys have in common? Well, they've been here before in Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni's offense. You know who hasn't? That DeAndre Swift guy who had a hell of a juke, hell of a lower the shoulder on the same run. That was spectacular. Trey Sermon's been here, but he got into the game. Rashad Penny not been here. He was playing in tonight's game. Do we just believe this is all about learning the playbook, or did we get a little insight into RB1 will be Kenny Gainwell? What did you take away from it, Bill?
Well, John's been saying it for a couple weeks now that Kenny Gainwell is the RB1 on this team. And I really think that who Sirianni plays means something. I don't think this was just about learning the playbook. I think the fact I wasn't necessarily surprised that Gainwell didn't dress, but I was really surprised that Boston Scott didn't dress. So if that's any indication that these two guys are going to make the roster, I think it's clear that DeAndre Swift is making this team. So that battle for that fourth running back position may really be between Rashad Penny and Trey Sermon. They kept Trey Sermon on this active roster last year for a reason. They didn't want to risk putting him on the practice squad and somebody signing him off their practice squad. So I really think that fourth running back position may be the only position that's up for grabs between Rashad Penny and Trey Sermon. And interestingly enough, they both get 9 carries tonight. Neither one of them did much. Trey Sermon, 9 carries for 21 yards. He only averaged 2.3 yards a carry. Did have a nice touchdown run, close short goal line run. And Rashad Penny didn't do much, only 3.8 yards a carry on 9 carries for 34 yards. So I do think both of those guys are the only 2 big backs that they have in that running back room. So they're probably battling for that fourth running back position. But the fact that you don't see Gainwell or Scott, I think, is a big indicator. And that's why you saw Trey Sermon returning kicks. Because at first I'm thinking, Trey Sermon as a kick returner? But that was because they had no Boston Scott, no Britton Covey, no Kenny Gainwell, and no Quez Watkins. All 4 of those guys are listed as 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your kick return. So at first I'm thinking, Trey Sermon is a kick returner, but that's the only reason why he was back there.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask Derrick Gunn the same question when we come back, but I'll ask you this right now, Bill. If there's one player you had to point out, and I think I know the answer to this already, one player that helped his stock the most today, who was it?
I think it was Sidney Brown.
Yeah, I think it's clear cut, man.
Yeah, I think it was Sidney Brown, because everything that you've heard about him coming out of school, about how he throws his body around and all that, we knew we were going to see. But how smart he looked out there. He didn't look lost, and that was what you hit on right away. Definitely raised his stock the best. And that's a position that he can raise his stock and really solidify that role. So,
all right, coming up in a minute, we're going to talk to the great Derrick Gunn, ladies and gentlemen, of Sports Take right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We'll be back in a minute with the Pond Lehocky Postgame Show presented by the great people at Ocean Casino. Back in a minute.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pond Lehocky, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the steaks and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Lehocky Postgame show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, brought to you by the wonderful people at Ocean Casino. Joining us right now, the Gunfather himself, Mr. Derrick Gunn, host of Sports Take, co-host of Sports Take with Rob Ellis as well, 12 to 3 weekdays here on JAKIB Media. What's going on there, D-Gun?
How you guys doing tonight?
Football is back, D-Gun. How can we be any better?
Man. Yeah, man. Got the itch is scratched.
Speaking of scratching that itch, the question I asked Bill before the break there, Gunner, if there was one player that raised his stock the most, helped his stock the most tonight, what player would that be?
I would have to say it's Cleveland. I thought Cleveland had an outstanding game tonight. We didn't hear much about him in camp, but man, I tell you what, he made a couple tough catches, didn't drop anything, got separation, battled when he was in press coverage, battled. I believe he ended up with 6 official catches for the night. I really liked where he is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, he's battling Quez Watkins for the number 3 position, but I do think when the coaches sit back and look at the film, they're going to have to, if he continues to do this, they're going to have to find a way to figure him into the equation. When you really think about it, beyond their first 2 receivers, who's really a lock? You say Quez Watkins, but who after that? So there's room. You don't know if they're going to keep 5 or 6 receivers. Some teams keep 5, some teams keep 6. If this young man continues to shine like that in preseason games, he could be a viable candidate to be one of the receivers kept on this 53-man.
Real quick, I just want to jump in, Bill, real quick. Quez Watkins and Britton Covey suffered hamstring injuries in Thursday's practice. That's why neither one of those guys were up in the game today. Okay. Well, you know what? One man's injury is another man's opportunity. And this young man, Cleveland, made the most of that opportunity tonight. He was in the right place at the right time. And, the name of the game is how many can you catch, not how many can you drop. I love Greg Ward. The fact that they keep Greg Ward hidden, the fact that nobody has stolen him off a practice squad, the fact that they keep him hidden tells you that he does have some value to this team. All he does is make plays. He may not be the biggest receiver. He may not be the fastest receiver, but he's one of the most sure-handed receivers out there. And just a couple of years ago, we were calling him first down Ward because every time he caught a pass, it was for a first down. Then he gets buried last year in the depth chart. I think he's another guy that deserves more respect and more opportunities with this 53. This is a solid roster offensively. But when it comes to the receiving position, there is room for talent. There is room for depth on this team. We keep saying Quez is the number 3, but it's not a guarantee that he's that number 3. His speed is second to none on his team, but he's got to have the other attributes to go along with it. He's got to be able to secure those passes, fight for those 50-50 balls, and win more than he loses. You can have all the speed in the world. If you're not the complete asset, then you're a liability to a team.
Were you surprised that they sat Olamide Zaccheaus tonight? They dressed DeAndre Swift, they dressed Rashad Penny, 2 new guys to the offense, but they don't dress Olamide Zaccheaus. Do you think that's just because Covey and Watkins have hamstring injuries? Do you think that he's a lock to make this team?
I don't know if he's a lock. Obviously, they jumped on him real quick when they brought him in here from Atlanta. He had a nice season last year in Atlanta, considering the quarterback carousel they had down there. He had a nice season. He has some speed. He's tough. He's a perfect slot receiver for this team. I just think they wanted to look at some other younger guys more so than him. I think they already know what he's capable of doing. I do think he has a definitive role. And to directly answer your question, I think he's probably going to make this roster, But I just think they wanted to look at some of these other guys like Ngata, Cleveland, and obviously give Ward some reps in there as well.
Gunner, Sidney Brown, free safety number 1, safety number 1, him and
Here we go. I'm not going to go that far. Sidney Brown made some plays. I loved how he flew to the ball. I loved how he made some tackles. The only negative on him coming out of college was his tackling, his inconsistency at tackling. He had every other attribute in terms of anticipation for the ball, flying to the ball, great lateral speed, and he was around the ball a lot tonight. It's funny. Reed Blankenship last year goes from one of the first guys playing in a preseason game to now getting to sit a game out. So that tells me that right now he is the starting safety, one of the starting safeties. Will he be that for 17 games? That depends on him, But I do think if this kid, Sidney Brown, learns at an accelerated rate, you could see him in there sooner rather than later. But again, based on what Blankenship is giving you or what he's not giving you.
Yeah, I think Farzie's headed down to the stadium tomorrow to get his Kelly Green, Sidney Brown jersey. He's a big fan already. I love it. I
don't want to go out on a limb, but he's just like Brian Dawkins, guys. He's just like Brian Dawkins, gentlemen.
Yeah. Let's talk about. Go ahead, D-Gun.
I'm looking at G.I. Zoe. He says, "What do you think about Evans?" Here's the thing I like about Justin Evans. In the second quarter, he had back-to-back plays where, number one, he makes a mistake down in the red zone. And then he comes back and makes a big hit the very next play. That's a hungry player. I didn't know he was a big hitter, but this kid has some ability. There's a number of names that we don't talk about on a regular basis that are going to make this roster, and you're going to say, who? In kids like this, Cleveland, Evans, if they keep making plays in the next two preseason games, it's going to make it that much more difficult for the Eagles to make final decisions. But I like what I saw from the kid Evans. Keely Ringo. I mean, he got downfield in a hurry on one play and made a tackle. I mean, he's got the speed. You can tell he's got that SEC speed that everybody likes in that conference. So I'm really intrigued about more so than I don't care about wins and losses in the preseason. I could care less about that. I'm always focused on individuals, sets, how do they pursue the ball, anticipation, things of that nature. And saw a lot of good things from the Eagle players on defense tonight.
You talk about Justin Evans. I posted on my Twitter, Legal Hands to Face. He trucked Derrick Henry in college. One of the only guys to ever truck Derrick Henry in college. You got to see him light him up, man. Justin Evans does bring it. But, we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles as a quarterback factory. They looked like a D-back factory tonight. Yeah. With all these safeties they have, these cornerbacks, some great plays from these young guys. Who do you think – you got Avonte Maddox at that slot position. Who do you think is going to be behind him? He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Who do you think can solidify that nickel position if Maddox goes out this year?
Wow, that's tough. The prime candidates have to be like McPherson, maybe Job, or one of these rookies. We don't know. Because we don't get to see a lot in practices nowadays because they limit media's access to practices. You don't know what kind of cloak and dagger things are going on behind closed doors. We see what they want us to see. It's very vanilla when you get to a game. It's very vanilla when you're watching a practice. And then all of a sudden, then they go into their sessions after the media is ushered off the field. So it's hard to say exactly who. It could be the kid Eli Ricks. I love the way he anticipated on the ball and had a pick six. We really don't know at this point. But again, I like the young, hungry kids making plays. That's what you want to see. Are they making plays? Did they make mistakes? Absolutely. That's what a young player does. How quickly do you learn from your mistakes? And that's why I brought up Evans. He made a mistake on one play, comes back and makes a big hit on the second play. That's an accelerated learning curve. Does he do that on a consistent basis in practice? Don't know for sure. But the fact that he did it in the game tonight, and obviously he's not playing against the opposition's number one, but the name of the game is make the most of your opportunities when the lights go on and shine as much as you can to make our decisions as difficult as possible in terms of whether deciding to keep you, put you in the practice squad, or call you in the office and tell you, hey, thank you for practicing with us. We think you have potential. We just don't have room for you here.
As far as that secondary goes, I know you mentioned Justin Evans had the penalty, came back and made a play. Keely Ringo got beat on a back shoulder touchdown, came back, made a play. You look at guys like Mekhi Gardner. He got beat on a touchdown, came back and made a play. Resiliency you saw from the young guys trying to have a spot in that secondary. But Gunnar, you mentioned the vanilla play calling, both sides of the football, vanilla. I get it. But it's the closest thing we have so far to Brian Johnson calling plays It's the closest thing we've seen so far from a guy like Sean Desai calling plays for this defense. Anything jump out to you communication-wise, anything like that from either coordinator in their first exposure, as Eagle, in these Eagles positions?
Well, I like Brian Johnson's approach. I like the way he mixed up his plays. They up until, my goodness, late midway through the second quarter, Baltimore only had the ball 92 seconds. The Eagles controlled the clock, And I love the fact that he went for it on a 4th and 1 in his own territory and picked up the first down. I mean, why not? It's preseason. Why not take that risk? But that's sending a message. We're going to continue to be aggressive in what we do. And it doesn't, in some cases, it won't matter where we are on the field. If we feel we have the definitive advantage against whoever we're lining up against, we're going to go for it. And we're going to keep the ball. We don't believe they can stop us. Until they stop us, we don't believe they can stop us. So I like what Brian Johnson did. It wasn't exotic. You didn't see a lot of motion. You saw him mix up the pass with the run. And that's what you wanted to see. Now, Mariota early on, he ran more than he threw the ball. He missed some throws as well, of wide open receivers. Okay. McKee came in, made some great passes, Let's see where it goes from here. I would imagine in the second game, we might see more regulars from the opposition and maybe even the Eagles. I'm not going to say first team players, but I think you might see a little bit more of Jordan Davis. You might see a little bit more of Jalen Carter, even though I don't think you need to play him anymore. You might see Nakobe Dean, depending on how that high ankle sprain goes. I'm of school when it comes to high ankle sprains, I would like to err on the side of caution. And I understand Nakobe's missing some valuable reps out there. But I will also say this. I've dealt with enough players that have gone through those high ankle sprains. It's like the hamstring. It feels good 1 minute. All of a sudden you step the wrong way, you're out a month. So I would like to see them err on the side of caution with Nakobe. Obviously, we want to see him in games. If he doesn't get any game reps as the middle linebacker, could hurt him early on in the regular season when they hit the ground running. But I'd rather have him for that first game than have him extended time off and not be ready for that first game.
You mentioned Nakobe Dean. It looks like he has that one linebacker position locked up. Do you think any of the other linebackers separated themselves in that competition tonight?
No, not really. It's too early. Miles Jack Cunningham came in later in the game, didn't do a whole lot. They just basically wanted to get, some reps in, work up a little sweat. As we sit here right now, Christian Ellis looked pretty good out there. I thought he made a great play when he had to go lateral across the field and help tackle a runner for a loss in the first half. I thought he made a good play, but it was a good play. I want to see more of Christian Ellis. I've been saying for weeks, even before they brought in Miles Jack and Cunningham, I felt that Christian Ellis really was going to push Morrow for that starting job. When you take into consideration, Morrow comes here with no money guaranteed on a 1-year contract. Who does that, first of all? Most of these guys, you want to get something up front, even if you're going to be here. He came here on a 1-year deal. Now, it's okay, you can say, well, he had 108 tackles in Chicago. Okay, how many tackles did he have downfield because Chicago's defense was so bad last year? Sometimes those stats are padded. But you look at Morrow, he's only 6'1", 215. Christian Ellis is 6'3", 235, 240. Do the Eagles feel they need more girth, a bigger body on that will linebacking position? Now you got Jack and Cunningham into the mix as well. I don't think it's Morrow's job by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to figure this out, obviously, in the next week or so. Who's better suited for that position? And don't be surprised if it's not Morrow.
The one thing you mentioned with Christian Ellis, I think it's the same play you're talking about there. It looked like he almost over-pursued to one side, but it was like he could afford to be aggressive because either way he was turning the guy back into, I forget who it was who had the ball for Baltimore at the time, but he could turn him back inside to still make a play with the rest of the defense being there, which was good. You mentioned Marcus Mariota running more than throwing. It's not a quarterback controversy, but is it a backup quarterback controversy? I mean, Tanner McKee was going out there and slinging it. It's at least the right start for him. I didn't expect to see that type of performance from him tonight. Is there a chance that he could be the backup when the season starts?
There is a chance, but Mariota has the wealth of experience. Even though his career, after the first couple of years, his career has really been inconsistent at best. You look at what happened to him in Atlanta last year, had the job, couldn't keep it. And then, of course, on the show Quarterbacks, if you saw that show, how he faded into oblivion till he was no longer with the team for whatever reason, injury reason, whatever the case may be. I think Mariota is out there performing with that proverbial chip on his shoulder. But sometimes, when you try too much, that's when you make mistakes. And I still think he's learning the offensive system that he's expected to run. It's going to take some time. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a quarterback controversy now.
Right, yeah.
Give it a couple of weeks before we
No,
start.
I jumped. Gunner, you know me. I just jump top shelf. I just go right for the top shelf.
I know you do. But that's what, But some people are like quarterback, you know what I mean? Some people out there might start there, but no. Right now, no.
Now, we didn't see much of Jalen Carter tonight, but we saw just enough. How excited were you to see exactly what everyone's been talking about him doing in training camp, do it on the field against another team?
If he continues to do what he did tonight, I guarantee you he won't be seeing single blockers. He'll be double teamed. The fact that he stuck his foot in the ground and duked the guard one way and did that swim move and dipped inside and almost had a quarterback sack, that's what we're expecting to see. That's the Jalen Carter we saw at Georgia. You talk about lightning quick off the snap. Man, does he have a great burst off the snap. Everything we've heard about him in practice so far has been true. But again, it's in practice, controlled environment. They're going to get some good work in next week against the Cleveland Browns when they come to town in a couple of days. I got to see Jalen, just like everybody else. I got to see him do it when the bullets are flying for real. He has all the attributes you can look for. Everything, you're highly decorated, highly successful national championship, steady rock on that Georgia defense. There's a reason why the Eagles moved up a spot to get him at number 9 instead of sitting in the hole and waiting for him at number 10 or 11. I do think he's going to be a cornerstone for this team for many, many years to come if he can stay healthy, like that's the case with anybody. But that one play, I saw him burst off that snap. I'm like, my goodness. This dude is going to be lethal. If this is just a small sample of what's to come, he is going to be a nightmare in the interior for opposing quarterbacks and running games for that matter.
No, absolutely. I was saying when we started the show here with Bill, it's like that's what we'll dine on for another week before we see him out there on the field again, man. It was something special to see that. And Fletcher Cox, who I'm going to ask you a question about in a second here, but saying that it looked like a screen, like it was that easy for him to get into the backfield. He thought it was a screenplay. But Fletcher said something during his interview. So I want to ask you this question, generally speaking, about the Philadelphia Eagles here, Gunner, because you know this franchise inside and out. During his in-game interview, Fletcher Cox said that a number of former Eagles reached out to him when he was in free agency and said, "Don't leave. We regret our decision to leave the Eagles. Stick around." What does that say about this organization and how special it is? Not just the organization from a business standpoint, but the camaraderie of this locker room as well.
It's about the culture. It's about something that has been established early back in the 2000s when Andy Reid was here, and it has carried over. Now it was like a rocky boat when Chip Kelly was here, but from Andy Reid to Doug Peterson to Nick Sirianni, it's all about culture here. And I can't tell you how many players that left here and went somewhere else to tell me, D Gunn, this sucks. They don't do this for us, they don't do that for us. And the Eagles treat you like men. They treat you like professional men. They know when to push you. They know when to back you off. They take care of you in a lot of ways that are not even mentioned publicly. Take care of your families. Jeffrey Lurie has done such an incredible job of making players feel like family with the Philadelphia Eagles. You can't say that with a lot of teams. Would you want to play for that nut job in Indianapolis? Would you want to play for that dude in Arizona? Would you? There are not many teams in the league that have a Camelot type culture here. And it starts with the players in the locker room. And what they've done for so many years is, in terms of passing the baton, they identify a core group of players who are everything that they want them to be, both in the locker room, in the building, on the practice field, and in the community. You don't hear about a lot of outside noise with a lot of Philadelphia Eagles like you do some other teams. That's deliberate. And these guys are the core group of guys that let the newcomers know, whether you're a veteran or a rookie, hey, this is how we handle our business here. And everybody falls in the line. Plain and simple. That's hard to do, especially in today's football, where you need 53 psychologists to deal with today's football player compared to the days of Tom Landry and Chuck Noll and Don Shula, where everybody got treated the same and yelled at the same. You have to be able to nurture these guys a lot more individually, more so than collectively. And the fact that they have the best in security guy in the business, and Dom DeSandro, who makes a lot of things go away, they keep all their business in house. You don't hear about a lot of, even when players leave. How many players do you hear other than maybe CJ GJ say something negative about his former employer? That doesn't happen with players here.
Absolutely. Last one for me, Gunner. Bill, I don't know if you have another one, but last one for me. What do we read into, if anything, about the running backs that were active and playing tonight and the running backs that weren't?
Exactly what I expected.
Okay.
You don't need to see Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. You know what they can do. You have two new running backs who are still getting adjusted to this system. They needed to get in there and get some head knocking in, get some reps in. And that's exactly what I expected to see. So, and even Sermon got in for a few plays, got himself a touchdown. This team is 5 deep in the running back position. How many teams can say that in the National Football League? You don't need to see everybody. And Nick Sirianni basically told Gainwell, and Scott, take the night off. We know what you're capable of doing. Can they bury Trey Sermon again on their practice squad? I'm shocked that nobody picked him off last year. Can they bury him again this year and hope to have him around for 17 games as an insurance policy? I don't know if that's going to happen again this year. But the fact that he got a little run, was he showcasing for somebody else? Who knows? Maybe Howie tries to trade him for a future draft pick or something. I don't know. But
real quick, do you think this leads to the idea that Kenny Gainwell is, if there is even a running back one, an RB1, is he RB1?
I don't think there is a running back one. I think I've said this time and time again. It will be the epitome of running back by committee. Now, there might be a lead back. There's no feature back in this offense. There might be a lead back, meaning a guy starting the game may get in a groove early. He might get more touches more than somebody else, or whoever comes in and relieves them might get into a groove more so than anything else. But I don't think, you look at what they bring to the table. You got Penny, who's that banger between the tackles. You got Swift, who's an open space guy. That one run he had, he put his foot in the ground and juked the dude and picked up 22 yards, lowered his shoulder, bounced off a tackler, got a few extra yards. That's the DeAndre Swift I expected to see. You know what Gainwell is. He's a power runner, and he's a good pass catcher. Boston Scott, you know what he can do. He's like a bowling ball. You can't find him behind the line of scrimmage. A single, arm tackling doesn't stop this guy. So you have 5 different, multitudes of different types of backs. And I think, we know Boston Scott is the giant killer, okay? So I would imagine his role elevates against the Giants for whatever reason the case may be. But in terms of other games, I think it's going to be based on down, distance, and who has the hot hand at that particular time.
Now, before we let you run, D-Gun, we asked you whose stock is up after today. Anybody you think hurt their stock in tonight's game?
Well, I would say maybe Ian Book, but that's
good God.
I would say Ian Book. He may not be here much longer. The Eagles are very patient about trying to cultivate and nurture a player, especially a quarterback. But they may be looking for another quarterback somewhere after Ian Book's performance tonight. Outside of that, I really didn't see anybody who hurt themselves. I saw a lot of young, hungry guys making plays, and when they made mistakes, they made it with effort. It wasn't for a lack of effort. They were young players making young player mistakes, and they were also young players making plays on both sides of the football. So in terms of just hurting their overall stock, really didn't see that from any guy out there tonight other than one quarterback. That's it.
Well, on that note, was it Tyler Zettner, the other punter, not Aaron Sipos, the other punter? He can't hold for Jake Elliott. I know that much. That one was a shankopotamus, the one that he held for Elliott there. That was no bueno, Gunner.
Our colleague and friend Rob Ellis is hoping this guy somehow supplants Sipos, because Rob is so anti-Sipos. I've been trying to tell Rob since early June, Sipos is going to be your punter. Plain as they brought this guy in basically to push Sipos, but I don't think there's any way he beats him out.
Gunner, what do you guys got coming up this week on Sports Take?
Monday, obviously, we'll recap what happened tonight. As of right now, I couldn't tell you who we are going to have on for a guest. And obviously, we'll recap all the things that the Phillies do over the weekend. man, they came out and smoked Minnesota last night and took one on the chin tonight. So now it's the rubber match tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. And anything and everything that happens in the world of sports, we'll be talking about it from noon to 3 on Monday.
And we'll be talking about training camp battles with the Cleveland Browns and who won practice that day. And Nick Sirianni will be all geeked up for beating the Browns at practice because that's what we have to get excited about
I never get jacked up for training camps and practice.
It's joints. It's a bloodbath, Gunner.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Okay. If you believe it, sell it.
Well, we're less than a month away from New England. We're almost there.
There you go. Really less than a month away from Thursday night. See, I'm mundane through training camp, preseason games, but then the juices really start flowing when we hit that Monday preceding that first official game on a Thursday night. That's when D Gunn gets jacked up for the season. So until then, I'm embracing my summer as much as I possibly can because I know September's coming, and that means old man winter's right around the corner when fall gets here. I love my football, but I love my summers as well.
You have anything on the smoker right now?
No, absolutely. No, come to think of it, no, not tonight. Not tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
I need a mental health day, so I'm taking a mental health day tomorrow.
Good enough. The great Derrick Gunn joining us right there. Gunner, great catching up, man. Thanks so much.
You guys have a great night.
You too, as well, man. Talk to you later in the week, my friend. The great Derrick Gunn joining us right there on the Pond Lehocky Postgame Show presented by Ocean Casino. When Bill Colarulo and I come back, we're going to get into a couple other guys whose stock rose and some others who has fallen. A little bit later, John McMullen will be joining us from Baltimore. Down a couple crab cakes and then jump on with us, talk all things Eagles-Ravens following the preseason opener. We'll be back in a minute.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Bill, I don't know how I'm supposed to take this or not. I don't know, but I just see in the chat here, I'd rather watch the fanatic polish Farzi's head. I don't know what that's a reference to just yet, but that's GI Joe and talking to my girl Babs out there, I believe. Yeah, that's good times. That's good times there. Hey, I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you had an issue with special teams. It's something we hadn't talked about a lot. We talked about the punter. Obviously, it's all sewn up. Jake Elliott, no problem there. But punter, kick returner, punt returner, whatever it was, anything help you out tonight with any optimism or increased pessimism while watching the special teams tonight?
Yeah, my concern is last year they were in the bottom 3 for kickoff returns against, and they were in the bottom 2 for net punting yards. We said going into the game, the biggest thing was we needed to stay healthy. Well, it looks like they may have lost their best special teams player from last year in Sean Bradley, and that's going to hurt. This was an area they needed to improve this year. They got away with it all season last year until Super Bowl 57, where that punt return came back to haunt them. So we really need to make sure that special teams coverage is solidified. And you saw it tonight. Some of those kick returns against, it looked like they were one missed tackle away from that guy breaking a long return. So I still thought they looked a little bit shaky. Nice play on that punt return, forcing the fumble, recovering it in the other team's red zone. But yeah, that's an area that I'm concerned about. And Sean Bradley's led the team in the last 2 years with special teams tackles. So let's hope he's okay, but it did not look good.
Yeah, how about Rick Lovato coming down the field to be able to pick up that ball as well? That was pretty great to see. One name we haven't mentioned yet, and I was a little surprised to see how the Eagles were using him. Tyler Steen was a tackle throughout his entire college career. He was drafted as a guard. He is supposed to be a guard. There was supposed to be a battle at guard. It turns out that was a lie. And now Tyler Steen is playing left tackle, and he started at left tackle for the Eagles tonight. I would consider his first NFL experience to be more down than up, but not a terrible debut. I'll put it like that. Didn't do anything to really impress me. Got bull rushed a couple of times, but I was just bottom line surprised to see him line up at the tackle position as opposed to the guard position. What did you make of his performance and use tonight, Bill?
I was very surprised when the starting lineup came out that they had him at the left tackle position. Not because I think that he's going to beat Cam Jurgens out, but right. We all thought that he was going to learn that right guard position to be the first backup there. So I was surprised. And he did what you would expect from a rookie in his first game. He had some good plays. There was that one where they blitzed from around the outside and he had 2 guys coming. He needed to pick one guy or another. I'm not sure that was necessarily on him. It looked like DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield may have missed the blitz assignment. I'm not sure. I don't know what blocking scheme they had in there, but he runs right by him, and Steen was kind of in a tough spot. He had 2 guys. He had to pick one. He picked wrong, and it disrupted the play. But you expect that from a young guy. But, yeah, I was more surprised not by his play, but just where they had him. But, yeah, no battle at all. Cam Jurgens is your starting right guard. It's amazing. Last year, no, Reed Blankenship's playing, Cam Jurgens playing. This year, those guys are locked in as starters.
Mm-hmm. He did rotate around a little bit, but I was surprised to see him out there in the early goings of the game to be in the spot that he was there at left tackle. Without further ado, let's go down to Baltimore and talk to our man, our co-host there of Birds 365, John McMullen. Let's talk all things Eagles preseason opener. And John, I'll just start out with this. Kenny Gainwell, the man you have dubbed as RB1, not in the lineup tonight. I would assume that's because we don't really need to see the guy that's going to be your starting running back to this point. What'd you make of that there, John?
Well, I was, ready to spike the football in the end zone, Mark, and say, I told you so. But Nick Sirianni did put a break on it a little bit. I don't know if I believe him, but he's trying to say that running backs need to be hit, and that he wants those guys to, build up a tolerance for that, which is understandable. And it was Penny and Swift's turn. And, against Cleveland, Gainwell and Scott will get some run to make sure they get hit. If you look at it that way, then maybe Penny and Swift are ahead of them. But everything I see in practice tells me that's not the case. There are a couple other guys, Quez Watkins, Britton Covey. I was surprised, didn't get any run. Now, they had hamstring issues. So Nick confirmed that. They were scheduled to play, but they felt a little tightness. And you know the Eagles, they're going to err on the side of caution. But, yeah, Cam Jurgens, full-fledged deference card. Reed Blankenship, full-fledged deference card. Those guys you can look at and say, yeah, they're a big part of this team and a big part of their philosophy. And I heard you guys talking about Tyler Steen. They made that move in practice when they decided that Cam was the starting right guard. And remember, he's taken every first team rep. The only time he hasn't been first team at right guard is the few reps they let Kelsey rest. Then he moves to center, and Tyler Steen took a few. But every single first team rep, Cam Jurgens has been on the field. And Jeff Stoutland noted, look, if you're going to be a backup, and that's what Tyler Steen's going to be, you got to cross train. And left tackle is his natural position, so it's probably a little bit easier for him. And he's been the second team left tackle for about 4 or 5 days now.
John, if Nakobe Dean didn't have the injury last week, would we have seen him tonight?
Yeah, it's a good question, Bill, because, that's one guy I just mentioned with Quez and Britton. In fact, I expected them to keep him limited in practice and all the days, run together for me this time of year. But the last practice on Thursday, I expected him to keep Nakobe limited so they wouldn't be playing him in this particular game. But he was a full go, and they still sat him. So Nick didn't address that specifically, but yeah, I from their standpoint, he's the starting middle linebacker, and the question is who's going to play next to him. And that's a legit wide open competition. It could be Nicholas Morrow. It could be Christian Ellis. It could be Miles Jack. It could be Zach Cunningham. It could be a combination of Zach Cunningham on early downs and Miles Jack on passing downs, a bunch of different ways. But Nakobe Dean is going to be the starting middle linebacker. And, yeah, he's getting some of that deference. I don't know if he would have gotten it if he was completely healthy and he hadn't tweaked the ankle. Jordan Davis played. So, there's a guy who's taken first-team reps consistently, but he's a young player who hasn't played a ton, and they got him some reps. I think Nakobe would be in that category if he was completely healthy. But, again, they're always going to be cautious. That's just the nature of it and what they believe in. And that's what I think is going on with Nakobe. But anybody who thinks Nakobe's in danger of losing a starting job, not happening. Not unless they bring in somebody else from outside the organization with more relevance.
John, when you and I spoke, I think it was on Friday, yesterday, with Bo Wolf at The Athletic, Bo had predicted a shakeup at a certain position, that position being safety. When you look at the depth chart after this game, you're going to see a major shakeup. Sidney Brown could be that number one guy. I think he certainly helped his stock in trying to become that number one guy tonight. Do you expect to see that shakeup this week against the Browns at practice and then on Thursday night as well?
I do. I've been expecting to see that for a week or so, to be honest. I'm surprised it's taken that long, but you guys got to see the burst that I've been talking about with Sidney Brown. It's just different than every other safety on the roster. Now, sometimes he's going in the wrong direction. That's the problem. But, at some point when somebody's that talented and that more significantly talented than the other options, I go back to my old buddy Jim Schwartz, who will be in here Monday. Startup costs, get him out of the way. He's better. And he's taking 13 reps. So as impressive as he was today, remember, Reed did not play. So they started with Kayvon Wallace and Terrell Edmonds. And then they're mixing in Justin Evans before Sidney Brown. It's like, why? Why? I can't answer that question. I mean, I'm going to live with the startup cost with Sidney Brown. To me, it should be Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown playing safety for this team in week one. I think the Eagles look at it a little bit differently.
We've been hearing a lot from training camp about how good Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith look. And obviously we saw it, Jalen Carter, right away. Do you think Nolan Smith showed his true talents tonight? You think that he had some growing pains in his first NFL game?
Well, Nolan's interesting, because he's so undersized, but he's so fast and athletic. And you saw it on the one pass rush. He was a hair away from sacking the quarterback. He got a quarterback hit, had this great move where he dipped the shoulder around the tackle. It's something you rarely see from rookie players. That was like a savvy, old school veteran pass rusher move. So I think he's going to be a great pass rusher. Our team's going to take advantage of him at times in run support. Yeah, you have to live with it a little bit because he is an undersized player. But when he's doing that much damage on the pass rush, I think the Eagles will be fine with it. And remember, it's a luxury because he gets to sit behind not only Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, but also Brandon Graham. And you have Derek Barnett as well. They have so much depth on the edge. They can bring Nolan Smith along slowly. But you saw it with all three of those guys. Jalen Carter only had 2 reps that I saw. And one of them, poor Ben Cleveland, he's an ex-teammate of Jalen's at Georgia. I mean, that's the kind of, I've been talking about this since the Eagles drafted. That kid's different. I mean, he is just unbelievably gifted and talented as an interior pass rusher. You got to see a little brief glimpse of it. He's going to be a really good player. And if he didn't have the off the field issues, you always worried about quarterbacks getting pushed up in the draft, but he was the best player in this draft, a pure football standpoint. And to be a Super Bowl team and to get that kind of talent in the draft is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. John, you heard Nick Sirianni after the game today address the media, of course, in his post-game press conference. Anything jump out to you from that other than injuries, per se, with Quez Watkins and Britton Covey as well? Anything else come out of that press conference?
Well, the biggest was because I had thought that Gainwell was getting, as I mentioned, the deference treatment. I thought Britton Covey was as well, and Quez. And it turns out with the receivers, it was the hamstring issues. They both are dealing with a hamstring. And I told you his explanation with the running backs. I'm certainly buying it with the receivers. I don't know if I'm buying it with the running backs. We'll see when Cleveland gets in here on Monday. So, you saw Zach McPherson take some punt returns. I'm saying, wow, where'd that come from? Because, I mean, he has never taken a rep as a punt returner in practice, ever, Zach McPherson. And all of a sudden he's out there returning punts, and all of a sudden it comes clear Britton is injured. Quez takes reps in practice. He's injured. Greg Ward got injured in the game, kind of tweaked his looked like he tweaked his hamstring on that 4th and 1 conversion. By the way, Greg Ward was great today, guys. Just rock solid. I saw him after. He seems fine, but he tweaked it. So all their punt returners, A.J. Brown takes punt return reps. Devontae Smith takes punt return reps for high leverage situations. Obviously, they weren't playing. So that's why Zach McPherson was taking punt return reps. There were no punt returners left.
You mentioned how good Greg Ward looked tonight. How many wide receivers you think this team's going to keep? Because you have to think A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and probably even Olamide Zaccheaus, with them sitting him tonight, are probably locks to make this team. Are they going to keep more than 5 wide receivers?
Probably not, but I mean, you have to realize, and Nick points this out all the time, especially with the new roster rules that are only a couple years old now. It's really a 69-man roster. So you might have 2 or 3 receivers on the practice squad, and it becomes that sort of game of strategy for Howie Roseman. Who can you get through waivers? who can you not get through waivers, or you feel you might be in danger of losing them. I don't seem, to be honest, there are certain positions, namely the defensive line, and when I say that, I mean the edge rushers and the interior players. Tremendous depth. They're going to have to cut players that are NFL level players. I don't think they have that kind of depth at wide receivers. So the Joseph Nadas of the world, the Tyree Clevelands, who played very well today, even the Greg Wards, who's steady, but he doesn't have the speed to scare people. You can get those guys through waivers and get them on the practice squad. And I think that's how the Eagles will go about it, is have 5 on the 53 and carry 2 or 3 on the practice squad.
John, real simple, stock up, stock down, and I am going to take Sidney Brown out of this conversation, but who is an Eagle that definitely raised their stock in this game, and who hurt their stock the most in this game?
Who hurt their stock the most? It's tough to say. I thought Kaylee Ringo had a really bad drive when the Ravens scored that on that 37-yard run. He went inside when the back was cutting it outside and really didn't support it very well. Then he got beat right off the line of scrimmage near the goal line by Devin Duvernay. But, he's going to be the 6th corner on this team. So, I don't – it's not like he was threatening to play. But, as a young guy, if you think about – we just talked about the rookies and how impressive Carter was and his 2 reps, and Smith with the pass rush, and Sidney Brown with the burst. You didn't get that same kind of feeling with Ringo. So he might be the most high-profile one, unless you want to go down to Ian Book as the 4th quarterback. That's over. That's happening. Not that it was a race to begin with, but yeah, Tanner McKee played well. I think Marcus Mariota's stock. I think, he had 2 drives, 14 plays and 12 drives. Yeah, at 12 plays. He converted 3rd downs, 4th downs with his legs. He's been so much better since Josh Andrews got here, and he doesn't have to ruin reps with the bad snaps. So he continues on the upward trend as well. And when you get down to the 3rd string players, I don't. Can we really call it? If you're taking 13 reps, and this is what bothers me about Sidney Brown. If you're taking 13 reps, is it really stock down? Your stock is already down. You can only go so low. And that's why I kind of don't understand, take the shrink wrap off Sidney Brown. That is the one thing I don't understand. And I think they will this week, to be fair.
Yeah, one of the things, they're going to look for areas that they can improve. And I'm sure Sirianni's going to have fun with it this week, but too many penalties in this game. They had 7 penalties for 40 yards, a lot of pre-snap penalties. And, what did you think about that? Is that something you think Sirianni, the way he preaches this type of stuff, he's probably going to be all over him this week?
John, we still have you, brother?
Sorry, I lost you for a second, but I'm back. Do you have me?
Bill had a question about the penalties.
Yeah, I said, they're going to be looking for things that they can improve on, they can work on. They did have 7 penalties for 40 yards. You think Sirianni's going to lean into them about that?
Not really. Always about penalty, but they've been sloppier in practice, so I think it was an improvement. That's been one of the issues in practice. Almost every day, a bunch of pre-snap penalties. So believe it or not, I think they were trending in a positive direction. And there was the pass interference call. We were talking about that. That was clearly pass interference, the offensive pass interference. So some of them are real penalties. But anytime you have pre-snap penalties, yeah, you want to clean that up. But the Eagles have been really struggling with that at practice, and it was actually sort of smoother than I expected, to be honest.
Gotcha. John, just last thing for me, when it comes to the coordinators, anything jump out there? Obviously, you can point to penalties as being an issue, but between Sean Desai and Brian Johnson, Anything said about those guys after the game?
Yeah, I asked Nick about both of them and how the dry run went, and he was, understandably, he's not going to say anything bad. I do think it went pretty well, especially offensively. As I said, those first two drives, I mean, they went 14 plays and 12 plays, so that's pretty impressive. You'd like to punch it in, obviously. And Jake Elliott had the missed field goal, which was more about a bad snap and a new holder. And ironically, if he makes that field goal, they probably win the game and stop the greatest streak in sports. But unfortunately, Jake wasn't able to get it through. And by the way, I want to thank Greedy Williams because he missed a tackle at the end of the first half. And that enabled Justin Tucker to come in and kick a 60-yard field goal. That guy, and it would have been good from at least 65, maybe 70. And it's funny because you're sitting here and the fans are right in front of us here in the press box. And there's like 50 Tucker jerseys. They got place kicker jerseys in Baltimore. Greatest kicker of all time. And I've been covering this league for 25 years. And I said there's some cool things you see. Tom Brady, when he was in Philadelphia for joint practices years ago, just shredding the Eagles, and they were shaking their heads and cursing about his accuracy. And I'm getting to see Justin Tucker just boot one through from 60. That was, I don't often get, that was pretty cool because that's the greatest kicker of all time.
And by the way, Nick Sirianni, he wanted to win this game. Like
I don't think he cared.
Steven, seeing him on the side, I don't know if he has that gear. Like, I understand most preseason games, sure. But I think if there was ever a preseason game he wanted to win, I think this one was it.
I was looking for that. I just didn't get it. I just don't think – I don't think – Baltimore, I kind of figured it out. I mean, they start Josh Johnson at quarterback. And I'm like, how do they win 23 straight preseason games? And I'm thinking, you guys remember Josh Johnson from the NFC Championship game, the fourth quarter. Guy's 100 years old, can't play at all. And the Eagles completely dominated the first half. That's where they should have won the game. And all of a sudden, they start the second half, and Tyler Huntley's out there. That's their second string quarterback. That's the guy who made the Pro Bowl when Lamar Jackson was hurt. It's one of the best backup quarterbacks in football. And he's shredding the third teamers. That's not relevance. I don't think Nick cares at all. He's very competitive, but I don't think
Harbaugh clearly cares, though. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think he does by what he did with Huntley. It's like
it's crazy.
It's a waste of time, but it's a crazy anomaly. I mean, that goes back to 2015. They have not lost a preseason game. It's pretty amazing.
John, this is actually, we buried the lead here. I forgot to ask the most important question. It's the last thing, I swear. This is the last one. Did they have the crab cake balls in the press conference?
They did not. They did not.
Wasted trip. Wasted trip.
You have no idea, Mark. It usually takes me an hour and a half to get down here. It took me 3 hours. 3 hours because there were 2 accidents on 95.
Rain? Was there a little rain?
There was no rain, just bumper to bumper. And then anybody who's ever been to M&T Banks, the stadium, the parking situation, they don't have signs.
Yeah, it sucks.
And they change it. And you're a Baltimore guy. And they keep changing our lot. So it's not like, well, I was here in 2016. So he goes, no, it's a different lot every time. I'm asking everybody in town, where's the F lot? Nobody knows.
Let me know when you get to Dundalk, the mean streets of Halliburton Avenue. Anyway. John, great catching up as always. Thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to Birds 365 all this week with you and Jody Mack as well. John, thanks, bud.
All right, thanks guys.
Safe travels. The great John McMullen joining us right there. Yeah, don't mess with Halliburton Ave, man. They'll mess you up there. When we come back, we'll give our final thoughts on the Eagles preseason opener. For Bill Colarulo, I'm Marc Farzetta. We'll be back in a few here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pond Lehocky, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
The Eagles just couldn't get past the Ravens tonight, 20-19. And no, just for the record, Bill, I don't care either. I mean, yes, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. It'd be nice little. It'd be the smallest feather in the smallest. You know, like here's the world's smallest violin, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
This would be the smallest feather in the smallest cap if the Eagles were to, snap the streak for the Baltimore Ravens, but it's still good to kick off the season.
It's just wild to me that Harbaugh cares so much. He clearly strategizes to win these preseason games. I don't get it.
They always say that he stole the preseason or the training camp schedule and organization from Andy Reid, like literally like copy paste, took his binder to Baltimore and just did everything exactly the same. Andy Reid never gave a damn. Not like this about the preseason. That's for sure. Couple of names though, Bill, that we haven't mentioned yet that I want to mention. One on a positive note and one on a negative note. Let's start with the negative. Josiah Scott, still not very good at football, which is a problem considering that's the sport he's playing. Interception goes right through his hands in the fourth quarter right there. And I was thinking, like last year, he fills in for Avonte Maddox. He left a lot to be desired, especially in the Dallas game in Dallas. And then I see him out there in the preseason today. And you mentioned it's going to be a crowded secondary, guys competing for jobs. I don't see how Josiah Scott is one of those guys. And he certainly, talk about stock down, not that it can go much further down than it already is, but he didn't help his cause tonight either.
Well, they say these guys play corner because they can't catch. If they could, they play wide receiver.
Right, yes.
But you got to make the most of your opportunities, especially when you're in a crowded room like that in the secondary. And a guy like Eli Ricks does make the most of his opportunity, takes it the other way for a pick six. That's how you stand out in these games. And, yeah, Josiah Scott definitely didn't help himself in a really tough position battle.
Ricks, definitely the pick six was incredible. And then on the very next possession, had another play to break up. Did you see Brandon Graham? I love seeing this. Brandon Graham's sitting on the sidelines next to Jordan Davis. They're looking up at the Jumbotron, Fanavision, whatever you want to call it, looking up at the screen, and they see the play that Eli Ricks made on the next play. Not the interception, but the next pass breakup that he had. And then you just see Brandon Graham making that face, that real impression, like, ooh, look at that boy out there running, man. That's amazing. That's my best Brandon Graham impression. But on a more positive note, I have not been a Von Sumeren supporter.
He's an athlete, man. He's an athlete.
The word you see about him is raw. He's a raw athlete. Like, can he be a linebacker? He had 6 tackles today, 4 of them solo, second on the team, only second to Sidney Brown, who, in case you missed it, I'm already putting in the Hall of Fame. But when it comes to Von Sumeren, he was actually going out there making plays as a linebacker today for the. I think he had I don't know if he had a tackle for – no, he did not have a tackle for loss, but I know he had a good stuff there at the line of scrimmage at least. But he actually showed me a little something, that Michigan State kid, Ben Van Sumeren, tonight.
Yeah, he is, like you said, he is raw, but he is so damn athletic, and you saw it on the field tonight. And another guy who's raw but is an athlete is Ajomo at the defensive tackle position. Definitely. I thought there were some flashes from him as well. So overall, they lose the game, but a lot of these young guys showed us exactly what we wanted to see. Nobody really looked lost out there tonight. In their first preseason game ever, they look like they belong on the NFL level, and that was promising.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't see what appeared to be a lot of miscommunication between guys on the field, looking at the sideline. Brian Johnson seems to be in a good rhythm throughout the game. When it's a fourth down situation, I mean, they're looking at Nick Sirianni as whether or not they're going to go for it. I understand that one situation where they didn't go for it on the fourth down, they wanted to give Zettner an opportunity to at least get a punt in there. Sipos did the same type of thing. They did it for Sipos as well. He was able to put one, I think, at the 11-yard line where it was just fair caught at that spot, 11 or 12-yard line of the Ravens territory there. So that was good. But I think that decision is going to be made. And we were talking to Derrick Gunn earlier in the show about it. He's going to be your punter again. And I know a lot of people were like crossing their fingers that the Eagles were going to go out there and add somebody else off the scrap heap to be the punter for the upcoming season. But it looked like it's going to be Sipos's job here. One other name that was interesting to me here, and I hope we get an opportunity, of course, to see Nakobe Dean later, but Christian Ellis, we mentioned him briefly earlier in the show. What appeared to be an over pursuit earlier in the game turned out to be the right play at the right time. We mentioned it, turning him back to the inside of the line of scrimmage or back to the middle of the field to be able to make a play as a defense. But I thought he looked like a guy who certainly belonged on this defense. And Morrow, I'm telling you, I think one of the toughest competitions right now is that outside linebacker spot. I think it's going to be between Christian Ellis and it's going to be between Nicholas Morrow as far as who's going to be a guy that stays and who's going to be a guy that goes. Jack had himself a good game, and I think you're going to continue to see things from Cunningham when he gets opportunities. But I think that's a very tough competition that the Eagles have going on right now for who's going to be the other guy not named Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, you said it. Christian Ellis looked so fast on that play, on the way he pursued, and it was a good play. He knew he had help inside, so he could miss outside. You can't miss that guy inside and let him get out on you. But what I really liked about the defense is when Christian Ellis is in the game and Sidney Brown is in the game, they are fast. And I'm just getting excited thinking about when you have Bradbury and Slay and Reed Blankenship, you got Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat coming around the outside, and you have all that speed on your defense. This defense could be very, very good. I know we have those question marks at linebacker and safety, but if they play fast, they're going to be a tough, tough defense.
Mm-hmm. All right, if you have to give a game ball to one player, Bill, who are you giving a game ball to?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. I'm going to go
with split it. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go with Tanner. I'm going to go with Tanner McKee. First game ever, he looked like he was an NFL quarterback out there. And welcome to the quarterback factory.
I gotta say, this is a guy you haven't heard anything about, really. And yes, you have the rules now where you can keep 3 quarterbacks on. That's great. But I did not expect to see that. What I expected to see from Marcus Mariota, I saw from Marcus Mariota. I saw a guy who was like, if you had to give him a rating, like a Madden rating, he was 99 run. Okay, and like 70 throw. Okay, maybe 65 throw. That's what I saw from him today. A couple of overthrows. Yeah, he had a couple of good throws, but a couple of overthrows as well. But he's exactly what you would expect from Marcus Mariota. But from Tanner McKee, him going out there and throwing the football the way he was, back shoulder throws, threading the needle on a couple, putting him on the dot, man, putting him between the numbers. And yeah, he had a number of throws to Cleveland that I thought were great. That, to me, really showed me what type of quarterback he could be. And look, we're just looking at a backup. But this is a position you don't even think about with the Eagles at this point because Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. But just evaluating a preseason game, that was a very nice surprise. If I had to go on the defense, and look, I think Sidney Brown is the champion of preseason game number 1, all right? But if I had to go defense, I mean, all I wanted, Bill, I think all you wanted to from this game was to have that one play from Jalen Carter. He was out there for 2. One of them, he made a great play. Jalen Carter made a stud play off the line of scrimmage to get into the backfield. And everything that you wanted to see at the NFL level for him, you got to see in his first experience in the NFL on that one play. And Fletcher Cox, of course, added to the lore of the one play by saying it looked like a screen and all that. And I think that summed it up the best. Look, I wanted to see one play from Jalen Carter. We got that wish.
Yeah, we definitely did. And look, we were questioning the coaches, the new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and you got to tip your hat to them. A lot of young guys look like they belong today, including Tanner McKee. He's a 6th-round draft pick at the quarterback position. He looked like he knew what he was doing. In fact, he's yelling at players for not knowing what they're doing. So, that comes down to your coaches really getting these guys ready. So overall, they don't win the game. I think this was a successful preseason game 1. You would have liked to have seen them get out of it without any injuries. Let's see what's going on with Sean Bradley, local kid from Mount Holly, great special teams player. Let's hope he's okay. It didn't look good. And then you heard John mention Greg Ward should be okay as well. But overall, definitely a success. And Eagles football is back, Farzy. I am excited, man.
I am watching. I actually watched the game tonight with a buddy of mine, and I have the Phillies on one TV. I got the Eagles on the bigger TV, and I'm making fan sounds as I'm watching. I'm like, oh damn, get him, run! And I'm like, it's preseason. I'm talking to myself. I'm like, it's preseason. Why am I getting so excited? And it's just because we've been craving the return of Eagles football. Bill, a lot of fun doing this post-game show with you, brother. Great catching up again and great talking football.
Oh, man, it was good to see you. I missed you. We got to do Birds 365 last week, a couple days. I didn't think I was going to get to see you for a while. And then surprise, surprise, we're doing a post-game show. I love it.
Look, lucky us. That's Bill Colarulo. Legal hands to the face. Make sure you guys follow him on all social media platforms. To everyone that watched the show, everyone in our comment section, you guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. Tone DeShields did a great job producing the show. This is the Lehocky post-game show. Everybody had a great time catching up with all of you. And this, of course, is presented by the great people at Ocean Casino. Check out Oceans and go for the win. We'll be back with you guys sooner rather than later. Until then, go Birds.
EAGLES.